Stop scrolling for a second. I want you to do something uncomfortable. Open your bank app right now and look at one number. Not your salary, not your CTC. The number that's left over after rent, after EMIs, after Swiggy, after everything. The number you could actually save this month if you wanted to. For most people watching this, that number used to be zero, or worse, negative. But somewhere along the way, maybe last month, maybe 6 months ago, that number crossed 10,000 rupees. And here's the strange part nobody talks about. The jump from 0 to 10,000 doesn't just change your bank balance. It changes how you think. It changes how you fight with your partner about money. It changes what you believe you deserve.
Today, we're talking about why life genuinely feels different once you cross that 10,000 rupee line, and why almost nobody tells you the truth about what happens next. No judgment here. This is a safe space. Let's get into it. Part 1. The number nobody admits. Here's an uncomfortable stat. A large chunk of urban Indian professionals earning between 6 and 12 lakh a year, people who look fine on paper, are living with a monthly surplus of under 2,000 rupees. Some are in the red every single month, floating on credit card minimums and I'll figure it out later. I'm not saying that to shame anyone. I'm saying it because if that's you, you are not the exception. You are the norm, dressed up in a LinkedIn profile picture. And here's the thing. The moment your surplus crosses 10,000 rupees a month, something shifts. Not your net worth. 10,000 rupees isn't going to make you rich. It won't buy you a flat in Bangalore or even a decent used car. But it does something else. It buys you a choice. For the first time, money isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you get to decide about. That psychological shift is bigger than the number itself. And that's exactly why it feels different. Think about what zero surplus actually does to your brain, day to day. Every unexpected expense, a medical bill, a broken laptop, a friend's wedding gift, becomes a small emergency because there's no buffer to absorb it. You're not just financially stretched, you're in a low-grade state of alert almost constantly, even if you'd never describe it that way out loud. Financial anxiety doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like flinching a little every time your phone buzzes with a bank notification. 10,000 rupees doesn't erase that alert state completely, but it's usually the first amount large enough to survive a genuinely unpleasant month. A big auto repair, a friend's destination wedding, a month where 3 things go wrong at once, without wiping you out completely. That's the actual mechanism behind why it feels different. It's not the number showing off. It's the nervous system finally getting a small, real signal that it can exhale. Part 2. Why the first 10,000 hits different. Let's talk about why this specific number, not 50,000, not 1 lakh, 10,000, is the one that flips a switch in your head. Trap 1. The paycheck-to-paycheck identity. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, money isn't a tool, it's a threat. Every rupee is already spent before it lands in your account. Rent takes this much, the credit card bill takes that much, your parents need this much sent home. You're not managing money, you're just surviving it. And when you live like that long enough, you start believing that's just who you are with money. Bad at it, always behind, always anxious. Crossing 10,000 rupees breaks that identity for the first time. Suddenly, there's proof in your own bank account that you're not incapable, you're just under-resourced. Those are very different things. Trap 2. The invisible ceiling. Here's what nobody tells you. A lot of people who could cross 10,000 rupees in savings never do, because they never actually try to. They upgrade their lifestyle at the exact same rate their income grows. New job, new salary, new phone. Slightly better salary, slightly better apartment. It's called lifestyle creep, and it's not stupidity. It's a coping mechanism. If you've spent years feeling financially behind, spending the raise feels like relief. Saving it feels like more deprivation. So the ceiling isn't your income, it's your relationship with catching a break. Trap 3. Nobody taught you what enough feels like. Most of us were never taught what financial safety actually feels like in the body. We were taught to chase bigger numbers, bigger salary, bigger flat, bigger EMI on a bigger car. Nobody sat us down and said, here's what it feels like when you have breathing room. So when that breathing room finally shows up in the form of 10,000 extra rupees a month, a lot of people don't even register it as progress. They just feel a little less panicked and move on without ever building on it. Trap 4. The comparison tax. Even when your own numbers are genuinely improving, social media makes sure you never feel it. You cross 10,000 rupees in monthly surplus, and within the same week, you see 3 posts about someone's Europe trip, someone's new car, someone's financial freedom at 26 reel. So instead of registering your own win, you instantly recalibrate against people whose starting point, family support, or income you know nothing about. This is what I call the comparison tax. You pay it in silence, and it quietly erases progress that should actually feel good. Nobody shows you their EMI schedule in the caption. Here's why these 4 traps matter together, not separately. Trap 1 convinces you that you're bad with money. Trap 2 makes sure any extra income disappears before you notice it. Trap 3 means even when the extra money is sitting right there, you don't recognize it as progress. And Trap 4 makes sure that even if you do notice it, social media talks you out of feeling good about it. Break any one of these traps on its own, and the other 3 will quietly undo your progress. That's why crossing the line matters. It's usually the first moment all 4 traps get interrupted at once, even if just for a little while. Let's put some real, if approximate, numbers around this, so it's not just theory. I believe the commonly cited estimate is that roughly 7 out of 10 urban Indian professionals report living paycheck to paycheck, at least occasionally. You should treat that as a rough figure, rather than a precise statistic, since survey methodology varies a lot depending on who's asking and how paycheck to paycheck gets defined. What matters isn't the exact percentage. What matters is that if you're in that group, you are sitting in a crowded room, not a lonely corner. Part 3. Meet Priya. Let's make this real. Priya, 29, works in marketing in Pune. Take-home salary of about 62,000 rupees a month. 2 years ago, Priya's monthly surplus was basically zero. Rent in a flat share ate 20,000. A car EMI from a decision she now regrets took another 12,000. Food, subscriptions, the occasional weekend trip, gifts for family functions. By the 25th of every month, her account was down to 4 figures, sometimes 3. Then 2 things happened. She switched jobs for a 15% hike, and she got serious about tracking where her money actually went. Not in a spreadsheet nerd way, just enough to see the leaks. Turned out 9,000 rupees a month was quietly leaving through subscriptions she'd forgotten about and food delivery she didn't even enjoy anymore, just defaulted to out of exhaustion. She didn't cut everything. She kept the things that genuinely made her happy and killed the things that were just habit. Combined with the hike, her monthly surplus went from roughly 0 to just over 11,000 rupees. Here's what Priya told a friend, and it stuck with me. It's not that 11,000 rupees changed my life. It's that for the first time, I wasn't scared to open my banking app. That's the shift. Not the number, the relationship with the number. Now, compare that to Rohit, 34, an engineer in Hyderabad, earning close to double what Priya makes, roughly 1,10,000 rupees a month. On paper, Rohit should be miles ahead. In reality, his monthly surplus hovered close to 0 for years, because every hike came with a matching upgrade, a bigger apartment when the last one was perfectly fine, a car that cost more to maintain than the one before it, dinners out that had quietly become nightly instead of weekly. Rohit's story is the lifestyle creep trap in action, and it's worth sitting with because it proves the point of this whole video. Priya, earning almost half of what Rohit earns, crossed the 10,000 rupee surplus line before he did. Income wasn't the deciding factor. The decision to name the money before spending it was.
This is also, honestly, where a lot of relationship tension comes from. Money fights between partners are rarely about the actual rupee amount. They're about one person feeling like the invisible ceiling and the other person not even realizing it exists. If you recognize yourself or your partner in either Priya's story or Rohit's, that's worth an honest conversation, not a blame session. Part 4. The honest counterargument. Now, let's be fair, because this channel doesn't do fluff. 10,000 rupees a month is not financial freedom. It is not going to fund your retirement. At a modest 12% annual return, 10,000 rupees invested every month for 20 years grows to somewhere in the range of 1 crore. And that number is genuinely meaningful, but it takes 2 full decades to get there. This is not a get-rich video.
And some of you will rightly point out, for someone in a metro city with a family to support, a sick parent, an education loan, 10,000 rupees of surplus might not even be realistic right now. That's true. Not every trap in this video applies to every income bracket, and financial content that pretends otherwise is being dishonest with you. But here's why the psychological point still stands, even for people who aren't there yet. The shift we're describing isn't really about the exact figure of 10,000. It's about crossing from a negative or zero relationship with money into a positive one, however small that positive number is for your specific situation. For some people, that threshold is 2,000 rupees. For others, it's 20. The number is both smaller and bigger than you think, depending entirely on where you're starting from.
There's also a fair criticism that videos like this can make personal finance sound purely like a mindset problem, when for a lot of people, it's structural. Stagnant wages relative to urban cost of living, rent that eats a disproportionate share of income in cities like Mumbai or Bangalore, or family obligations that aren't optional. Mindset alone doesn't fix a salary that genuinely hasn't kept pace with inflation. I'm not going to pretend a savings framework solves that. What this video is arguing is narrower, and I think still true, that within whatever room you do have, however small, the difference between naming that room and letting it evaporate unnoticed is enormous. That's a claim about behavior, not a claim that behavior alone can fix every structural problem in the Indian job market.
Part 5. What to actually do with it. So if you're sitting somewhere near that line, here's a simple 3-part framework, and none of it involves cutting out your daily chai. Framework step 1, name it before you spend it. The moment that surplus appears, it needs a name and a destination. An emergency fund, a SIP, a specific goal, before it sits in your savings account long enough to quietly disappear into miscellaneous. Money without a job description gets spent every time. Framework step 2, automate the boring part. Set up an automatic transfer for the day your salary lands, before you've had a chance to feel generous with yourself. This is the single highest leverage habit in this entire video. Willpower is unreliable. A standing instruction to your bank is not. Framework step 3, let it compound before you let it show off. The temptation, the moment you have some breathing room, is to visibly upgrade something. A better phone, a nicer bag, dinners out. Nothing wrong with occasionally enjoying it, but if the entire surplus disappears into visible upgrades every single time, you'll be back at zero within a year, just with better stuff and the exact same anxiety you started with. A simple rule that works for a lot of people: split any new surplus roughly 70-20-10. 70% toward the named goal, emergency fund first, then investing. 20% towards something that genuinely improves daily life, not just performs wealth for other people. 10% toward pure guilt-free spending,
Because a plan you can't sustain isn't a plan. It's a diet, and diets fail. One more thing worth saying plainly, where that money goes first matters. Before a single rupee goes into a mutual fund or a stock, most people in Priya's position need 3 to 6 months of expenses, sitting in something boring and liquid, like a savings account or a liquid fund. That's not the exciting part of personal finance content, and influencers rarely lead with it because emergency funds don't make for exciting reels. But skipping this step is exactly how people end up selling investments at a loss during an emergency, which defeats the entire purpose of investing in the first place. Part 6. Back to the beginning. So go back to that number you looked at right at the start of this video. If it's already past 10,000, don't let it sit there unnamed. Give it a job. If it's still at 0 or in the red, you're not broken and you're not behind some imaginary schedule. You're simply not being dishonest with yourself if you admit that's where you are, which already puts you ahead of most people pretending everything's fine. The number itself was never really the point. What changes once you cross that line is smaller and stranger than people expect. It's the quiet realization that money can be something you decide about instead of something that just happens to you. If this made you a little uncomfortable, good. That's usually the sign it's worth acting on. And if you're sitting there thinking 10,000 rupees still feels impossibly far away right now, I want to be honest with you instead of motivational. For some people, this month isn't the month that changes. That's a real valid place to be, and no framework in a 9-minute video erases a genuinely tight financial situation. But even there, the one thing worth doing today, right now, is tracking exactly where the money goes for 30 days. Not to judge yourself, just to see it clearly. You cannot name a surplus you can't see. Almost everyone who's ever done this, including Priya, found at least a few thousand rupees a month leaking out through things they'd stopped even noticing. Drop your own surplus number in the comments. Honestly, no judgment. Half the people reading will feel less alone for it. And if you want the next video where we break down exactly where that first 10,000 should go, emergency fund or investing first, that one's coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you in the next one.